Colleagues, thank you very much for coming along today to this very interesting session on higher education and the media, which is also, I think, the 20th in our seminar series, Centre for Global Higher Education. I mean, what an extraordinary time it is. Politics is being shaped directly by the media and by its interaction with the public and government. And that interaction, that politics is having an extraordinary effect on universities in a very rapid time. I mean, in many respects, the political debate is being shaped by different parts of the media in a direct interaction with the electorate, to some extent bypassing the political class and the universities as well. And in that, I think higher education faces both short and long-term problems, but challenges and maybe a changed landscape that it will need to work with and adjust to. I was amused by Nick Hillman's coverage of the effects of Brexit in higher education, and Nick's great strength, I think, is he's an optimistic, positive person, but he put a very positive gloss on the situation. You know, England can muddle through, basically, which I don't think is merited by events. I think we have a larger problem in front of us, and it's a problem that takes in, I think, the higher education institutions because of their larger role as well as their own interests. And also the higher education media as well as the general media. The question of higher education and the media, I think, has two dimensions for us, therefore. And Brexit has really highlighted the importance of the second one. The first dimension, though, is the one we normally understand. That's the relationship between higher education, especially universities, and the specialist media that covers higher education. And this country is blessed by the quality and quantity of media coverage of the sector. There really is no equivalent in any country. It's a great strength of British public life that it has a large open debate and discussion about many issues, but in higher education in particular, I think we've had a long and impressive tradition which many in this room contribute to actively and have played a major role in shaping over the years. I think of Brendan's work at Times Higher as well as his work at University World News. The work of Peter Scott, I think, is best known perhaps to all of us as playing a major shaping role in articulating the relationship between the specialist media coverage of higher education and higher education itself. There's really no equivalent. In the United States has the Chronicle, and it does have lots of media coverage and discussion, but it's marginal compared to the central role that the higher education media play in our sector. And Times Higher has been particularly, I think, important in that, in providing a central, regular point where major issues, and minor and medium-sized ones too, get canvassed pretty thoroughly. The Conversation has pioneered a new way of bringing research and scholarship and discussion to the world, and that's working also very effectively, and it doesn't seem to crowd out or create problems for the role of Times Higher, University World News and the others. So, I mean, all of those mechanisms are working. University World News has taken the sector to a global level, but I would emphasise that Times Higher, University World News, what's in The Guardian about higher education, Conversations work especially, they're all noticed around the world. You know, they're all part of a global discussion, not just a UK discussion, and sometimes we forget, I think, in talking about British cases and British examples, that there's a larger just conversation tuning into that, and that's also interested in its own situation. I mean, the ebb and flow of the relationship between the specialist media and higher education, you know, is a fairly predictable one. I mean, we in higher education say maybe the specialist media can be more critical, better informed, deeper in its coverage of some issues. We'd like to see our pet issues covered better, or perhaps according to our own bent. More often, that's inevitable. We can also always think of more issues that could be picked up and discussed as well. But as I said, I think on the whole we're pretty well served. I think if you look at it from the specialist media point of view for a moment, you would say, well, higher education is not always effectively or sufficiently active in this very generous provision of forums that it has for public discussion and discussion within the sector about itself. And certainly there's much to be done in terms of building capacity to manage and contribute to public debate in the universities. I think one of the things that jumps out for me is that only a small number of our senior leaders in the sector are really good in the public space, and you know, those that are, of course, have a tremendous impact when they come out hard. And you know, you would like to see, I suppose, public actor
capacity is a central aspect of leadership rather than a marginal one or one that's to be acquired on the job. You would like to see people being prepared in that as they go up the executive ladder before they take the senior positions. But I suppose we also have a problem with this rich and I think on the whole pretty effective conversation between the specialist media and higher education, and that's that it's partly or largely decoupled from the larger media conversation that goes on, the larger public, the larger policy space, the larger impact on government. Well, that's one of the reasons why it doesn't mobilise much electoral impact, because it is largely decoupled and specialised. And this second dimension, I would say, is the one I want to highlight also, the larger role of the media in constituting a public space and politics in the United Kingdom and elsewhere. And this sort of raises the question which we grapple with a lot in universities, what's public? What does it mean when we say public as opposed to private? In some definitions will say that public is constituted by state or government. The public is that which is constituted by, provided by, maybe funded by, or regulated at least by government. Others might say, is following the economic argument, that public is non-market. Public is those things which markets can't successfully produce. And that was Paul Samuelson's definition, which is the one which Treasury adopts when it decides how much private funding, how much public funding for student places. But there's a third sense of public, which is, I think, the ongoing and much used sense of public, which pertains to politics. And that's the public as a communicative realm, as a sort of space which is constituted primarily by communicative media, old and new kind, on the internet as well as in the streets, in the newspapers and on the airwaves. That sense of the public as a large discussion which from time to time is mobilised, centralised and impacts politics, shapes elections, brings down governments, brings down EUs, as we've just seen. So, that larger politics of the public is, it seems to me, very important. Now, universities are also public actors, as is public broadcasting, and the plethora of scientific, cultural, representative business and other organisations that sits between the public and government. So we are a very large network of institutions that has the capacity to shape, on a good day, to shape public opinion, to affect that larger community public. The problem of that larger community public is, of course, the state nature of its ownership, the fact that it's controlled to a degree by a small number of people, but it does have a democratic aspect. There is a kind of bottom-up aspect to that public. The electorate are not, our agents are active, if you like, individually, collectively, and regionally, and in individual cities and so on, in the shaping of public opinion. Universities, I think, at that larger level, have not been particularly effective in fully utilising their capacity. But one of the reasons is that there's more than one political public. There's the serious-minded political public, which is the political public of the universities, of the serious media, our sector media, The Guardian and others who are covering issues in some depth, and if you like, concerned with rational argument as opposed to slogans and emotionalism and manipulation of opinion, or perhaps to a degree interested in the second, but certainly interested in the first. And that on a good day, that intelligent, serious-minded public has a major shaping effect in government and policy. But there's a contending notion of the public which is more, I think, populist, which is more based on the tabloids, and which is more, I think, about emotional manipulation, electoral manipulation, and less about rational argument. And we've just seen that public at work, and we've seen the devastating impact that it can have in truncating whole lines of development, undermining institutions on a bad day. I picked up the Daily Mail's coverage of Brexit on Saturday. I don't read the Daily Mail. I've been in the UK for almost 3 years and I've never read the Daily Mail. And I've never read the other tabloids, I think, who are the villains of the piece in Brexit. But it really is a piece of work. I was really stunned, by the first 20 pages. It was really something. And this is gross manipulation of people on a massive, crude, racist scale. It's really bad. And this is what we're dealing with. So when we contend for, I guess, a more intelligent media, a better coverage of universities, we should probably be thinking about how the universities can more intelligently contribute to the constitution of a better public realm. We should be thinking beyond just what's going to be good for our research funding, or how can we preserve Europe to maintain our research funding. We should be, and how can we boost our policy position in the next white paper or the next budget. We should really be thinking about how can we contribute to the shaping of a more intelligent public discussion in this country. Because it seems to me that challenge is now really upon us. If we don't make headway on that challenge, things will get worse. We will see similar things happen in other countries around us, and we will go backwards. And I think that more intelligent role of higher education and the serious media together needs to be thought about at European level and not just a UK problem. And maybe Scotland's got a special role in that. As a citadel of enlightenment at this point of time, of global connectivity, and of a positive and enabling attitude to higher education and research, which England's more ambivalent about at this point. And maybe Scotland might play the role, on a good day anyway, that it played in the second half of the 18th century, as a really important node of intelligent, informed, intellectually based public opinion in Great Britain. We've got a great lineup of speakers. They're going to pick up different issues, angles and aspects.